Rome, 855 AD. The bells of St. Peter's Basilica toll across the Eternal City as thousands gather to witness the papal procession. The Supreme Pontiff, dressed in sacred vestments, rides through the narrow streets on horseback, blessing the faithful. But beneath those holy robes lies a secret so explosive that the Catholic Church would spend centuries trying to erase it from history. A secret that would shake the foundations of papal authority. A secret that, if true, would mean that for more than 2 years, the throne of St. Peter was occupied by someone the Church deemed utterly impossible. A woman. Her name was Joan. And this is the story they never wanted you to hear. The first written account of Pope Joan appears in the 13th century, nearly 400 years after she allegedly lived. A Dominican friar named Jean de Mailly recorded the tale in his Chronicle of Metz around 1250. But he wasn't alone. Within decades, the story spread like wildfire across medieval Europe. Chroniclers, bishops, and even cardinals began documenting the same scandalous claim. According to these accounts, a brilliant young woman from Mainz, in what is now Germany, disguised herself as a man to pursue education. In an age when women were forbidden from learning, she chose deception over ignorance, and she was extraordinarily good at it. The most detailed version comes from Martin of Opava, whose chronicle of the popes and emperors was copied and distributed throughout Christendom. He places Joan's papacy between Leo IV and Benedict III, claiming she reigned for 2 years, 7 months, and 4 days under the name John Anglicus, or John VIII. But who was Joan before she became the impossible pope? The legends vary, but they paint a portrait of exceptional intelligence and dangerous ambition. Most accounts claim Joan was born in Mainz, though some say England. Her father was reportedly a missionary or canon. What remains consistent across all versions is this: Joan possessed an insatiable hunger for knowledge in a world that forbade it to her sex. Medieval women, especially those of humble birth, were denied formal education. Universities didn't exist for them. Monasteries wouldn't accept them as scholars. The Church taught that women's minds were inferior, that their proper role was submission and silence. But Joan refused to accept this fate. According to legend, she fell in love with a Benedictine monk who recognized her brilliance. When he departed to study in Athens, the greatest center of learning in the Christian world, Joan made a decision that would alter history. She cut her hair, bound her chest, donned men's robes, and followed him as a male scholar. In Athens, Joan flourished. Disguised as Brother John Anglicus, she absorbed philosophy, theology, rhetoric, and grammar. Her intellect dazzled her teachers. Her debates left fellow scholars speechless. She mastered Latin, Greek, and the intricate arguments of church doctrine with an ease that seemed almost supernatural. Years passed. Her companion died, but Joan continued the deception. By now, it wasn't just about love or learning. It was about survival. And perhaps something more. Perhaps it was about proving that the limitations placed on her sex were nothing more than the prejudices of fearful men. Joan's reputation as John Anglicus spread beyond Athens. She was invited to lecture in Rome itself, the beating heart of Christendom. Here, in the shadow of St. Peter's tomb, she taught theology to future bishops. Her sermons drew crowds. Her wisdom impressed even the most cynical cardinals. The Rome of 855 AD was a city of intrigue and violence. Popes were made and unmade by powerful families. Political factions warred in the streets. The papacy itself was often decided not by divine inspiration, but by whoever commanded the most swords. When Pope Leo IV died in July 855, the Church found itself in crisis. The College of Cardinals needed someone neutral, someone brilliant, someone who could unite the fractious factions tearing at the fabric of the Church. They chose John Anglicus. Imagine the moment. Joan, a woman who had spent her entire adult life hiding her true identity, was elected Supreme Pontiff of the Holy Roman Church, Vicar of Christ, successor to Saint Peter, the most powerful religious leader in the Christian world. She accepted. For more than 2 years, Pope John Anglicus reigned from the throne of Peter. She issued decrees. She performed masses. She heard confessions. She judged theological disputes. And according to the chronicles, she did it all with remarkable wisdom and competence. No one suspected. Or if they did, they remained silent. But Joan carried more than the weight of the papacy. She carried a secret within a secret. According to the medieval accounts, Joan had taken a lover. Some versions claim it was a cardinal. Others say a chamberlain who had discovered her identity and agreed to keep silent. Whoever he was, their relationship produced the one thing that could not be concealed forever. Joan was pregnant. Imagine her terror. Every day her body changed. The robes grew tighter. The deception became more elaborate. She knew that discovery meant not just her own death, but a scandal that would rock Christianity to its foundations. She tried to hide it. She tried to time everything perfectly. But fate, as the medieval chroniclers loved to remind their readers, has a cruel sense of timing. On Rogation Day, during a solemn procession from St. Peter's Basilica to the Lateran Palace, Pope John Anglicus rode through the streets of Rome before thousands of witnesses. The route passed along the narrow Via Sacra between the Colosseum and the Church of San Clemente. And there, in front of the faithful, cardinals, bishops, and the astonished crowds, the impossible happened. Joan went into labor. The chronicles describe a scene of absolute pandemonium. As Joan collapsed from the horse, her robes fell away. The truth, quite literally, was exposed. The Supreme Pontiff of the Holy Roman Church was a woman, and she was giving birth in the street. Some accounts claim she died immediately in childbirth. Others say the mob stoned her to death in their rage and horror. Still others suggest the cardinals had her quietly executed and the baby killed to prevent any witnesses from surviving. What happened to Joan's body? That too varies by account. Some say she was buried in an unmarked grave. Others claim her remains were thrown into the Tiber River. The Church, according to legend, ordered that all records of her papacy be destroyed. But here's where the story becomes even more intriguing. For centuries afterward, the Catholic Church appeared to acknowledge that Pope Joan had existed. A curious tradition emerged in papal coronations. Before a new pope could be installed, he was required to sit on a special chair, a porphyry seat with a hole cut into the bottom. A cardinal would reach underneath to physically verify the pope's sex, announcing, "Duos habet et bene pendentes." He has two, and they hang well. This practice allegedly continued until the 16th century. Was it merely symbolic? Or was it evidence that the Church itself believed Joan's story? We're halfway through this extraordinary tale, and the mystery is about to deepen even further. But before we continue, if you're fascinated by these hidden stories from history, please take a moment to like this video, share it with fellow history lovers, and subscribe to Echoes of Hidden Tales. We uncover the scandals, betrayals, and secrets that powerful institutions tried to erase. Your support helps us bring these forgotten voices back to life. Now let's return to the question that has haunted historians for centuries. Did Pope Joan actually exist? For hundreds of years, Pope Joan was accepted as historical fact, not by fringe conspiracy theorists, but by the Church itself. In the Siena Cathedral, completed in the 15th century, a series of marble busts depicted all the popes. Among them was Pope Joan, labeled as Johannes VIII, Foemina de Anglia, John VIII, a woman from England. She stood alongside Leo IV and Benedict III, exactly where the chronicles placed her. The bust remained in the cathedral until 1600, when it was quietly relabeled as Pope Zacharias, and Joan's female features were altered. Why would the Church include her if she never existed? Why create art, traditions, and procedures based on a complete fabrication? Defenders of Joan's historicity point to several intriguing facts. First, there is a documented gap in the papal succession between Leo IV and Benedict III. Leo died in July 855, but Benedict wasn't consecrated until September. What happened during those months? The official records are suspiciously vague. Joan is a fantasy of reversal. What if a woman infiltrated the highest levels of male power? What if she proved herself more capable than the men around her? What if she beat them at their own game? But the legend also carries a warning. Transgression will be punished. Joan's story doesn't end with triumph. It ends with exposure, shame, and death. The moral is ambiguous. Is she a hero or a cautionary tale? Perhaps she's both. Today, the Catholic Church maintains that Pope Joan never existed. The story is officially classified as myth, a medieval legend with no historical basis. Most secular historians agree. Yet Joan refuses to disappear. She appears in novels, films, and academic studies. Artists reimagine her. Feminists reclaim her. She has become a symbol far more powerful than any historical figure could be. In 2009, the film Pope Joan brought her story to millions. Donna Woolfolk Cross's novel explored her life in vivid detail. Scholars continue to debate the legend's origins and meaning, and every few years, someone claims to have found new evidence that she might have been real after all. Why does Joan endure? Because her story asks questions we're still trying to answer. What happens when talent is denied because of gender? What systems of power rely on excluding half the population? What would our institutions look like if they had been built on equality rather than hierarchy? The Catholic Church still does not ordain women. The debate continues, and Pope Joan, real or imagined, sits at the center of it. So, did Pope Joan exist? The historian in me must say no. The evidence isn't there. The timeline doesn't work. She is almost certainly a legend. But the storyteller in me knows that some truths are bigger than facts. Pope Joan existed in the minds of medieval people because she had to exist. She was the outlet for anxieties, aspirations, and contradictions that had no other expression. She was the woman who shouldn't have been possible, occupying a space that shouldn't have existed. And maybe that's exactly why her story matters. History is full of voices that were silenced, stories that were erased, and people who were told they didn't belong. Some of them actually existed. Others live only in legend. But all of them tell us something true about the past. Pope Joan reminds us that power works very hard to decide who gets remembered and who gets forgotten. She reminds us that the official story isn't always the whole story. And she reminds us that sometimes the myths we create reveal more about us than the facts we preserve. Whether she was real or imagined, Pope Joan asks us to question what we think we know about history. And that, perhaps, is the most valuable thing any story can do. This has been Echoes of Hidden Tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who loves history's most controversial mysteries. What do you think? Did Pope Joan exist? Let us know in the comments below.